What do you got for me?
What's wrong with you people?
I got nothing for you.
What's wrong?
You're not David. How y'all feel this morning? I feel rotten. That's how I feel. Well, that was enough for me. We could have had the benediction right there. That was so good.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to The Reformatory, the podcast for the local church and by the local church, and we are your local churchmen. My name is Josh, and I'm here with as always, with Captain Peppa Jack.
Oh my gosh. Man.
Ed comes. Ed is like. This is what Ed's like. Ed is like an experienced relief pitcher. All right, it's baseball season. I'm excited about baseball. This is what Ed's like. Ed is the guy that comes in the clutch. You need someone to finish off the game, and you need to finish strong. Ed is that guy. Ed has given me more nicknames for you than I can even remember, and he came in strong today, dude.
To use Ed's state sports teams as a metaphor of what he does, he is the John Stockton to your Karl Malone. He will chuck you up.
That's not bad.
Some alley-oops every single time just to dunk on me. Okay,
yeah.
That's what you guys specialize in.
100%.
Okay?
He is the Michael Jordan to my Scottie Pippen. That is who he is, dude. He's amazing, dude. Captain Salt and Peppa Jack Peppa. I like it, depending on whether you want to go hip hop or not.
Salt and Peppa. You've got to put the N. There's no A and D. It's N. Salt and Peppa.
Salt and Peppa. Peppa Jack. Jack, my friend, how are you, dude? It's good to see you, man. We're back doing podcasting, baby. This is what we do.
Yep.
We're back in the saddle again.
I sliced my finger on
Easter
Sunday morning.
Yeah,
slicing this pashka bread, which is basically just it's just fancy Easter bread that most Russian people and any type of other folk make. Okay. And I had a bread knife, which the blade had teeth on it, right?
Yes, most bread knives do.
And I'm going over and I'm cutting, and I have my hand on this side, and I'm just that dumb, and I just barely nick the top of my on my left index fingernail, and it was just the blade was just that sharp that it just took that a little chunk.
Sheesh, man.
Nail, and I'm just like, that really friggin' hurts. Dude. I go to the bathroom.
Jesus' blood is enough, right?
I'm already in.
You don't got to spill your
garb. I'm already in Easter garb, dude.
I'm already in.
Dude, I'm already in my
regalia.
Dress shirt and my pants and my vest, and I'm going over the bathroom.
Your Sunday's best. You've got your Sunday bonnet on and everything.
And I put my hand in there, and it's bleeding and it's bleeding and it's bleeding. It's like, all right, I'll just put pressure on this for a minute. Put pressure on it for a minute. And then I just start wrapping my finger in gauze. And I'm just like, you know what? We're doing it live, people. I just wrap my finger in gauze, and I'm like, let's go. We're going to service. We're doing this. I get done with Easter service, come back to the house. I start unwrapping this gauze, and I'm like, it's like a steady drip bleed. It's not like a gushing, but it's like a steady drip bleed.
And I'm just like, just enough to be annoying.
And then I'm just like, let's put more pressure on it. Put more pressure on it. And then I'm like, you know what? This is annoying me. It's like, let's go to urgent care. So I go over to urgent care. They're like the only ones open until 4:30. There's nobody in there. I think the only other person was in there. That was it. So we go in there. And they're like, we don't see a tetanus shot on your record. We're going to give you a tetanus shot. So they gave me a tetanus shot. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then they're like, dude, this is how messed up this is how medical professionals and veterans are just like that close to each other because we have such dark humor about such gruesome things that you see.
Okay. All
So
right.
the physician's assistant who's treating me, I already soaked my finger in like the solution to basically clean it out.
Sure.
So it's like not infected, right?
Yeah.
And she's taking a look at it and she's inspecting it and she's like, you know, you were just that clumsy enough that you didn't hit the bottom of your fingernail so your fingernail can actually regrow. So congratulations on not being that stupid to cut yourself that bad. And I'm like, thanks, lady. Thanks
thanks.
a lot.
Yeah. I'm
Just to
sensing
add some
the
more
undertone
insult
here.
to injury right now. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it was fun stuff. So
Well, as true reformatory fashion, Jack, you soldiered on, and on behalf of all our listeners, we thank you. We thank you for being here today. We understand the trauma and just the amount of courage that it takes to be here
oh my gosh.
doing this radio with your boo boo finger.
Pretty much.
So we thank you.
Man.
Oh,
It was
my
fun,
friend.
though.
Yes,
Fun
yeah.
times, though.
Oh, dude, Easter was great, man. Easter
Yeah.
was great. I had the blessing of being able to help with music on Easter, so that was cool. Sang some
Nice.
songs. That was pretty dope. Haven't sung in church for a long time. I'm normally behind a drum set. But
Yep.
we don't have a drum set right now at church just because it's a smaller building and we don't want to. We like the congregation's voices to be kind of the main thing. So I got to sing. And that was fun.
Yeah, we have used our drum set consistently less and less over the past couple of years that I've been at my local church.
Yeah.
We've used it. We even used it on Easter Sunday, but it was so light and the acoustics. We met in
Yeah.
a middle school.
Right.
And I think I've told people about this, but we're meeting in this middle school that hopefully will be a longer term relationship to where we're just meeting for one service.
Dude, that's awesome.
We own our own church building. Our church building is not that big. And we're just like, you know what? Let's, instead of us being this two church, two congregations, two services, let's just have one. And it was so good, man. It's so good to know that like everybody's there.
Yeah.
And like you get to see everybody and you don't have to like get that overlap, the
Yeah.
in-between time in the service and stuff
Oh,
like
100%.
that. So
Yeah. No, shout out to your pastors for making that call too. That's a gutsy and I think really, really, really admirable call on their part. Also, I just about tipped my camera over. It didn't. It was close. I kicked it with my foot under the table. So anyone that's listening to this, when it goes up on YouTube, make sure to go check that out. It scared me,
Oh,
dude.
man.
I thought I was going over, but that's neither here nor there.
it's funny too because we talked about this over and over again. One of our elder candidates, he pastored a church that primarily met in a middle school, and it was a set up and tear down dynamic. But it was so good because Saturday we were setting things up. We got to talk to the custodians. There was a lot of interaction with the custodians. Our pastors, our members were talking with the custodian. It was a really good vibe. I think that
That's
custodian is an Army vet too, if I'm not mistaken, from some of our conversations. But just stuff like that. It was really, and it's interesting too because that middle school wanted us to come.
Yeah.
Like we talked to their administration. We said, "Hey, we're looking for a building. We're looking for a school primarily." And it's interesting because the entrance to the school, you literally have to go across a railroad track and make a left-hand turn in order to get into the school parking lot. And I'm like, so people have an excuse when they say they're late to church and a train comes through
miss
right
the
next
train.
to the school.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
it's
that won't be used and abused.
But man, it was really good. It's a solid setup there. I could see us hopefully being in there. Hopefully it's going to be on a longer term basis. I think this was our test run. I think we're probably going to do this a couple more times.
Legit.
So yeah, it was great. It was fun time celebrating the resurrection.
Amen.
Of our King,
That's awesome,
so,
dude.
yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Jack, before we hop into our topic today, my friend,
Yes,
why
sir.
don't you give us the reformatory cigar of the week. What do you got?
So this cigar was spurred on by a conversation just moments ago, recently, on Twitter with Mr.
Who says Twitter doesn't give us good things?
Exactly. With Mr. Darren.
Darren.
So Darren
Shout
out of Utah. Dude, everybody's out of Utah these days. You got Ed down there.
You need
got
good Christians in Utah,
Darren.
man.
So anyway, Darren spurred this conversation because you posted a picture of the Rose of Sharon.
I did.
And then he said, you know what else is good? The Matilde Serena. And this is one of the only other Connecticut's that I think is on par as far as like good smokable Connecticut's. I would say it's the Serena, the Charter Oak Connecticut, and the Rose of Sharon. I would say that those are the top three. That's the trinity of Connecticut's right there. So, but this is the Matilde Serena. We're especially going into the vitolicizing of the Corona. So the Corona has been kind of more like better to smoke than like a Robusto sizing or anything like that. And it's an interesting blend. So the wrapper is Ecuadorian Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
But the binders and the fillers, the binder is Dominican. And the filler is Dominican and Nicaraguan.
Oh man.
So you got to sneak those Nicaraguans in. This is the great thing. The price point on this bad boy is like $6 to $7.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's a good
this
budget
is like
stick.
this is like fantastic. Okay.
Yep.
So I would say that this is going to be somewhat like that Nicaraguan tobacco is going to give you a little bit more complexity. I actually saw reviews and they kind of broke it down and they said like they're actually going through the thirds. So they said the first third is not that bad. It kind of starts off a little bit peppery. And then it kind of goes out and smooths out into kind of like some sweetness, some creaminess. And people are saying like the final third, which is crazy. The final third is actually better because it tastes more like some hints of like roasted nuts and leather. So interesting flavor dynamics there.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Interesting flavor dynamics there. Anyway, but yeah, the Matilde Serena Corona.
There it is.
I would say that this is, like I said, I would say it's probably one of the top three, if not the top four Connecticut's on the market. Plus that price point, that's well worth just smoking at one time, to be quite honest. So
That's right.
There
All
you
right,
go.
ladies and gentlemen. Well, you heard it here first, possibly for the first time. The Matilde Serena in the Corona size. That is the reformatory cigar of the week. Go and smoke to the glory of God. All right, Jack. So here we go, baby. Got a, I think, really important topic today. One that hits close to home for me. And I think that it's a harder one to talk about, I think, in some contexts, but our goal here is to be encouraging. We want to be encouraging in this. I think often, when the topic of young pastors or young theologians, just young zealous Christians is spoken about, it can be done so kind of in a way of like the old codger, like kind of get off my lawn, shut up. You're meant to be seen and not heard, right?
get there in the back.
Exactly. And I think it can be discussed, when we're talking about young guys, and young guys, especially those that are kind of wanting to be in ministry. But not just that. Young Christians, men and women, coming up into Reformed theology, especially kind of in that context, right? The topics can often be talked about, and it quickly drifts into that despising them because of their youth scenario, right?
Yeah,
Which we know
sure.
from Timothy, like we shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
It's not their fault they're the age they are. It's not their fault that, they're in the theological stage that they're at. We believe God is sovereign over both those things. And we shouldn't be despising someone because of the youth that they have, either physical age or their youth in Christianity or in theology, right? Because we were all there, and some of us are still there, right?
Yes.
And it's important. It's important to have that caveat. However, I do think that there are some things to discuss with that in mind when talking about young people coming up in Reformed theology, and then especially young men who have a desire to be in ministry. I think there are some inherent pitfalls to watch out for. Many of which I can easily say I have fallen in myself.
Yeah.
So this entire ep is by no means a Jack and I saying, "Hey, you guys, you whippersnappers, get it together," right? I very much want the people that listen to this, I want them to learn from my mistakes and to learn as like, hey, I was here. Here's some things that I did, and these are some things to watch out for, right? So, something that I have observed over, and I think social media really kind of inflames this.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is an issue to talk about, and that issue is you often see, like I said, especially on social media, a coinciding, if you will, between young individuals that are within, Reformed theology, that might be Reformed Baptist, might be Presbyterian, might be, just, Calvinistic, right? You see a correlation between those individuals in that demographic and an unwillingness to learn and to be quiet
Yeah.
and to be humble
Yeah.
in theological topics. Right?
Yes.
You see this a lot online. You see the guy who loves to post, the real spicy theological hot takes, right?
Yeah.
Or the guy who's been pastoring for, maybe a year and a half, be very quick to give pastoral advice.
Yeah.
And preaching advice and be very dogmatic
Sure.
about the stances that they have, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, zeal is a good thing. Zeal for the truth is good, and it
Yeah.
should be commended and encouraged. However, and this is something I have learned the hard way,
Yeah.
zeal in and of itself, I think it was Calvin, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote, but he said something to the effect, it was either Calvin or Edwards, I think. He said something to the effect of, zeal without wisdom is like a sharp sword in the hands of a maniac. If we do not have wisdom to temper the zeal that we have, we are going to cut and inflict more damage than we do good.
Yeah.
And again, speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
And it's, as much as we joke about, like the couple who's been married a year, like writing a marriage book, right? That's a, or giving marriage advice, like, the things that we've learned. And it's like,
gosh.
man, you've been married a year. Come on, man. Right? It's like,
Take a chill pill.
Take a chill pill, as much as we joke about that. And there's a lot to joke about there. It is a very real thing in ministry and especially in Reformed culture. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to talk about today. Right. So Jack, let me throw it up to you first.
Sure.
And maybe just pose the question before we get into some of the more detailed aspects of it. Why do you think there is such a prevalence of this issue of young, inexperienced Reformed folks very, very, trying to and engaging in this way that it's obvious that they want to be heard, that they have things
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
But it's often, and again, not across the board, but it is often done so in a way that is without humility, without temperance. Why do you think that is? Why is that? Why is that so prevalent, especially in, I think, young guys wanting to get into, or that are in currently pastoral ministry?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a couple different things. First, I want to start off with just an example of what Paul gives us in 1 Corinthians. He talks about this in chapter 8 in 1 Corinthians. He says, "Now, about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. If anyone thinks he knows anything, he does not yet know it as he ought to know it. But if anyone loves God, he is known by him." I want to say that that's a very key passage to what we're talking about right now. Primarily because when younger men, maybe even middle-aged or older men, come to the doctrines of grace, they go into this place called the cage stage. Everybody knows it. We've all been there. Okay?
Yeah.
And you know what? It was weird because when I first became a Christian in college when I was 18, I really was kind of zealous, but in a legalistic way. And I think I was like that because I saw a lot of just Christians who had played the game while they grew up. They just went to youth group, and then I finally had this encounter with the gospel and with the real Jesus, and I'm just like, what are y'all doing?
Sure.
What are y'all, and it's just like, how can you not take things seriously? How can you not take these things like, I would sit in sometimes at Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and some of these guys would say, I don't think I can go to a party and not drink. And I'm like, what? So, man, it was just very difficult to be in a culture like that where you're so zealous and you're carrying this sword and you're just like, I got to hit everybody I can with this thing because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So from personal experience as well too, but I've been on the legalistic side of things. Now I felt like I was in exile when I came into the cage stage because it was 2015. I just had gotten out of the Army. I just moved back into Central Washington area. And really, I had nobody to talk to about this. I think I posted some cringe stuff on Facebook at the time, but that was about it. Yeah, didn't we all? It was so funny too, because at that time, Doctrine and Devotion started to really begin their like really bad first episodes on YouTube and everything. And shout out to Jofo. Shout out to Jofo, man. Those first episodes
I'm gonna
were
get
rough.
a text from Joe and be like, "Hey, what's up, homie?" Be like, "You talked to Jack. That was all him."
But I'll tell you what, those first episodes really started to cement this idea of this is what it means to be a particular Baptist. They really were starting. I think Joe and Jimmy were really trying to like guide the younger guys into being like, don't be stupid. Okay, please don't be like this.
Yeah.
And when I was living in, the small town that I was living in, I would go to a pretty solid Baptist church.
Sure.
But still, I didn't have like a whole lot of peers to talk to within that context. And I think that sometimes people take on a persona, and you see this happen in our culture today. The way that you stand out is you leverage celebrity and you leverage the way in which we get information in our time across to people, and that's through social media, and that's through being charismatic. Sure. And if I have to be charismatic and if I have to offend people and be brash and put that on social media, I'm going to do that in order to get my point across. Yeah. Because nobody else, and this is the bad thing, nobody else is speaking the truth like I speak the truth. which is
Sure.
the most
Sure.
narcissistic thing on the planet that you could
Yeah.
ever say.
Yeah. The cage stage really does create a theological elitism.
Yeah.
It really does place you on an island in which you think you are the governor of that island. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But I mean, I think those are the trappings. I think the thing that really didn't help, I think, our generation as millennials was that we were being taught to preach in a way from, shocker, codename Dark Crystal, in a way in which it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I had to go scorched earth on you. I
Sure.
would do it in a sermon, and I would do
Yeah.
it again.
As long as I was speaking truth, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how I say it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And man, you listen to older saints in the faith and how they've gone through expository preaching, and that's just not how they've done it ever before.
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's I think there is a misunderstanding with a lot of young guys that are coming into ministry with what it means to be a pastor, what it means to be a leader in your local church.
yeah.
And I think there's so much emphasis placed on making sure that the theological aspects of who you are as pure and as perfect as possible. Now, theological precision is important. We
Yeah.
need to know what's right, and we need to be able to articulate what's right.
Sure.
But I think what ends up happening is you have so many of these guys that are young, perhaps in Reformed theology, definitely young in leadership,
Yeah.
that want so many of the benefits of being in leadership without the responsibility. And the responsibility that they do want is the leading, the preaching, the teaching, right? And all of kind of the flashy upfront stuff. But you have so many
Yeah.
individuals who want those aspects of leadership, but they don't want to shepherd.
Yeah.
They want to be able to say what they want to say it how they want to say it without any of the consequences, right? And this is what's ironic. This is what's ironic about this whole thing is that the vast majority of individuals that talk like this online for a reason. Because the people that you're speaking to, you don't have to interact with. You can just say what you want to say. You can go scorched earth on the entire thing. And you can close your laptop lid, put your phone away, and you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to deal with those people's souls. You don't have to deal with those people's emotions, with those people's thoughts, with those people's backgrounds, with any of the baggage that they are bringing to the table in discussing these things with you. You don't have to deal with any of that. You can just say what you want to say and take off, and it's easy,
Yeah.
right? But it's not pastoral, and it's done so with a lack of understanding of what it means to shepherd people. And we have these guys who want to be seen as wise, want
Yeah.
to be seen as knowledgeable, as experts in their field, but they want all the benefits of that without any of the work that it takes to get to that point, right? And like I've said, I'm speaking from experience here. I know what that feels like and what that's like because I was that.
Yeah.
I wanted all of the prestige and the double honor that comes with being in pastoral ministry without having to actually do the work of shepherding, without actually having to deal with people's souls and actually have to care for the people that I shepherd, that I speak to, right? And you learn very quick, the longer you're in ministry, that not only what you say is important, but how you say it is important.
Yeah.
And you learn how to communicate. You learn how to lead graciously and humbly. You learn how to lead people to the conclusion that you want them to be at, but you do it in a way that is shepherding and not just berating them for not being there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I think a major aspect of it is that you see a lot of these dudes who are very quick to show you how much they know, especially online. And one of the first things that I ask myself is, one, do you interact this way with the people in your church when you come across a theological difference that you may have? Because if you do, that's worrisome.
Yeah.
That's worrisome.
Yeah.
That's I guarantee you, if you are interacting with people in this manner in your local church, you're going to ostracize anyone who has questions, because they're just, they're worried they're just going to get shellacked verbally if they come to you with any disagreements or anything like that, right? So that's always my first worry there. A second worry and a question that I have is, how long have you been in the ministry?
Yeah.
How long have you been pastoring people? How many times have you had to sit across the table from someone who disagrees with you, or someone that needs your help, or someone that's hurting, or any of the, all of the thousands of different scenarios that pastors will come across? How much experience do you have under your belt that gives you the confidence that you have right now? Right?
Yeah.
And again, not despising anyone because of their youth or their lack of experience. That is where the Lord has them.
Yeah.
But we do need to understand that age and experience are real things.
Yeah.
Right? And to speak with such confidence without those things, I often find troubling. Right?
Yeah, and even Josh and I were talking about this kind of before we started to record, but it's like your disposition and how you handle things and how you come across is very important. Mm-hmm. If you're coming across as a know-it-all, as a I'm the alpha dog here, you need to shut up.
Right.
You're not helping your flock. You're not helping the members of your local church body flourish, to be quite honest. You're not helping them in ways in which they probably need. And most likely, I mean, let's be honest, if you're in certain contexts of the local church, some people just came from a local church that had jerks for pastors.
Yeah.
And treated them like you're now trying to treat them. Mm-hmm. And so how are you even walking through with them and how they've been hurt,
right,
unfortunately, by another local church, and they're trying to find refuge to where you're at, and you're going to continue this cycle again. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very... I guess this just goes back to how, unfortunately, some people will get into that cycle where they go from one church to where they had jerks for pastors, they didn't shepherd them, all they cared about was being on stage, in the spotlight, glitz and glam, and then they couldn't even hold a conversation after the sermon because of whatever reason.
Sure.
Right? Or they had to go through so many intermediaries just to get a meeting with you, which, by the way, if you're doing that, please stop.
Yeah.
It's not helping anybody.
Pastors should be accessible to their people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's just I think that unfortunately, like, this is kind of like the horseshoe effect that we're dealing with kind of in certain aspects of North American Christianity right now, in which you kind of were done dirty back in the day, but you actually are kind of carrying on these traits as a shepherd or as an elder, and somehow nobody's challenging you on this.
Sure, right.
So I think that if you're seeing yourself just becoming emotionally pent up because somebody comes to you with something that asks a question or even challenges a position, and you have an emotional response to that, I don't. I think you might have to take some sabbatical or something, because it's like, man, people are going to come to you with a whole bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And, like it or not, like, you're there to shepherd them, you're there to love them, and you're there to steer them towards the truth in love and in mercy, and not in a way that comes across as just do what you're told.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's why it's so important to have a plurality of elders, and if possible, a plurality of elders that have different ages and life experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Because, look, you need those young, energetic pastors. You need the go-getters. You need the guys who have the energy, right? And have the zeal and have the desire, but you also need the older, wiser, more seasoned guys who have been doing it for a while to be able to, hold the leash back and say, hey, I love the zeal, I love the energy, but this is how I have seen this go off the rails before. Let me tell you how this goes. Dude, we have a fantastic at Redeemer. We have a fantastic elder group that is comprised of both young and older guys, right? Mm-hmm. And I see that dynamic work itself out, and that, there's the dynamic of the young guys who I think the Lord has blessed with lots of wisdom for sure, but want to get stuff done and be like, I think this is a good direction of the church, and they're right, they're not wrong. It is a good direction of the church, but you have one of our elders. His name's his name's Dwayne. Love him to death. He's been in ministry, 40, 50 plus years, right? The guy has seen more, and he has forgotten more about pastoral ministry than I know, right?
Yeah.
And you see his care and his love for the church in encouraging and showing affirmation to those things, but also showing the wisdom of restraint. And you see the wisdom of years come through in the way that he talks and the way that he approaches things and the way that he views, problems or issues or scenarios in the church. You see those wheels turning, and you just know, like, those wheels have been turning longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
And the immense blessing that is to a local body to have men like that who are able to encourage the zeal but also apply the wisdom of years that zeal needs, dude. It's such a magnificent blessing, especially to younger guys in the ministry. Surround yourself with old, seasoned veterans who have been fighting this war much longer than you. That is what's going to keep you on the straight and narrow, and that's what's going to keep you effective as a pastor, not burning out and not conducting yourself in a way that's going to ostracize you from your people, is by learning from those guys. I mean, it's been a massive blessing to me in my ministry, having those older guys that come alongside and be like, hey, Josh, what you're doing here, the idea here is good. Maybe the way you're going about it, maybe try this, and then I'll be like, well, I don't know. You're out of touch. Yeah. I don't know. You're old, man. Yeah, that's not how we do things anymore. And then I take 5 minutes to think about it and be like, oh man, he's right. This
dynamic was seen a lot in the Army. You would have a lot of new,
the young lieutenants,
brand new, fresh out the box,
bucking up to the sergeants,
butter bars, coming out. Just got trained up in their specialty in the Army, and all of a sudden, they're gonna go out there and win the war. I saw it all the time, dude. I saw it a couple times in Afghanistan, and it was so annoying because it's like you could have that disposition, or you could have the disposition of I just need to care for my people. How do I do that really well, and how do I not be a jerk about that? Yeah. Or you could have this disposition of like, having delusions of grandeur
Right.
and going on like that, and that really doesn't help out anybody.
No, it doesn't.
And you even see that from the past too, with I was watching a couple different documentaries on just like Vietnam and stuff like that, and how a lot of the term "getting fragged" came out of that war because there were so many young, brand spanking new second lieutenants that thought, I can win this war just on my own knowledge, and I'm so puffed up and I'm so capable that they completely threw everybody under the bus in order to get stuff accomplished. And then their own soldiers turned on them to like throw a grenade in their tent.
Right. Yeah.
So please don't be like that.
yeah. I found so James chapter 3, right? We're talking about these guys coming into ministry, wanting to be seen as wise, wanting to be seen as knowledgeable, wanting to be seen as leaders in the church, right? And I understand that desire, right? But we need to understand that your knowledge, your ability to articulate theological concepts as eloquently as you can, that doesn't make a leader, right? I'm not impressed with your ability to argue with me on Facebook or on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Or to shut me down, right? This is what wisdom looks like, right? And this is something I have to remind myself of, because too often I can stray from this. This is coming from a heart that is convicted of this, right? James chapter 3, starting in verse 13, it says this. It's really short, but it's powerful. James says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom."
Yep.
James says, if you want to be seen as wise, if you want to be seen as one who has understanding, it's not in your articulation of high theological concepts.
Yeah.
It is in the meekness of wisdom. Show his works. How are you leading?
Yeah.
How are you leading in meekness and in wisdom? How are you caring for your people in gentleness and in love? How are you shepherding your people through all of the things that they are going through, all of the different scenarios that they'll find themselves in their life? How are you, as their pastor, how are you leading and caring for them? That verse right there hits me so hard, because it's encouraging in that, to be seen as wise, I don't need to know assist Theo front to back, but it also is convicting, because it's not about so much what I know. It's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
How do I lead God's people? Do I want to be seen as wise? Do I want to be seen as one who has understanding? It's by the good conduct of my works.
Yeah.
In the meekness of that wisdom. That is where and how I am seen as wise, right? James is taking it out of the temporal, out of the just knowledge based, and he's saying, okay, with all of the knowledge that you have, how are you applying that? How are you leading your church? How are you loving your people? Jack, I think we need to get back to that. And I know that's something that I need a reminder of every single day. If I want to be seen as one who is wise among the people of God, I need to first be seen as one who is a shepherd and who is giving of myself to care for the needs of my people in meekness, right?
Yeah.
That's the word he uses there, meekness.
Yeah.
Not boastful, not arrogant, not prideful, not trying to be
puffed up.
seen,
Yeah.
not puffed up, not trying to be seen as someone in front.
Yeah.
Meekness.
Yeah, I think I think we're coming from this too in one of two ways. I mean, I think Josh is coming at it from previously being a pastor and then even pursuing pastoral ministry back again too. And I'm coming at it from the angle of being a layman and also being somewhat of a deacon, and someone taking the place of just like, I'm here to listen. I'm here to participate. If you ask me, And that's the thing too. Like, you can be very skilled at something as a member of a church, but it is vastly different to use that knowledge and that understanding as a weapon versus as a tool, like what Paul says, to build up. Right?
Yeah.
So you can either do a couple different things. You can take the knowledge that you have and just use it like a hammer every single time and whack people over the head with it. Or you could use it as a tool in which it builds people up. I'll give you an example. We are going to go through the Apostles' Creed for the next 10 to maybe 12 weeks coming forth.
Nice.
And there's two sentences in that creed that people get stuck up on, right?
Sure.
We won't go into this on this episode, but I'm just saying there's those two sentences. And so I was having this just little text thread conversation with one of my pastors, and they said, hey, we got a community group guide for you to go through for the next week when we start into the Apostles' Creed series, And I said, hey, I got some books. I've gone through them if you need them. And he's like, ooh, yeah, I do. I need a couple refreshers on those two sentences. So bring those when you get that stuff when you come by the church. So you could have a disposition of building up people in your church with the knowledge that you have, or you could use it as a weapon. It is not very wise to use it as a weapon because I know from experience that is going to breed a church culture of competitiveness and not one of love. You're not spurring each other into doing good works. You're literally spurring each other to fight with one another all the time. And you're never going to get things done because it's always going to be, I got to jockey in order to get into church leadership so that I can serve and get to this top dog position.
Right.
I mean, this is the stuff that we've been talking about for the last couple episodes of how those business concepts really conflate what we're really supposed to be doing in the church. We're not supposed to be trying to out-earn one another in our revenue earning in the church here, people. We're supposed to be building each other up and equipping each other in order to minister to the saints and also to proclaim the gospel.
Right.
So it's just those two things. Like, you could use wisdom as a weapon or you could use it as a tool to build. And I think sometimes people conflate those two things. And if they're if they're really defensive about it and not honest and not more have a disposition of being more like, yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
Not having that disposition of confession, that's going to hurt you as a leader going forward because that puffed up nature is not going to go away by itself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, at the end of the day, the church needs young, energetic, zealous leaders. But it needs those leaders to understand and to not be defensive of the youth that they have. And it needs leaders that understand they don't know everything. And their inexperience in age and in the ministry has some pitfalls to watch out for.
yeah.
And those pitfalls can be avoided.
Yeah.
And it's done
Absolutely.
It's done with putting more stock into learning how to shepherd in meekness versus trying to be the guy who's out front being seen and trying to show the world how wise and knowledgeable he is.
Yeah.
That is going to get you onto the fast track of burnout and ostracizing yourself from your people.
Yeah.
We need leaders in the church that care for their people, care to shepherd their people, and who don't care about being seen in a certain light.
Yeah.
And I do believe that disposition comes from time, age, and scratches and bruises in ministry.
Yeah.
I'm talking as someone who gets it.
Yeah.
And I understand. And I'm not at all saying that I have arrived. By no means. I am not an old seasoned warrior, but I have more than a couple years of experience in the ministry.
Yeah.
Right? But I do not have the amount that, like I mentioned, our elder Dwayne does, that I look at him and I just think, my goodness, Lord, like, please get me to that point. That's where I want to be. Right? And that's okay. But we need to have hearts of humility.
Yeah.
A desire to lead in meekness and gentleness. And a heart that cares more about loving and shepherding our people than it does being seen as the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's hard for young folks to do. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's something we got to watch out for. Right?
Yeah.
Right, because that if you have that disposition, it'll make you a good leader. I don't care how young you are. If you have the disposition that your care for the shepherding of the souls of your people comes first, that's going to make you a good pastor.
Yeah.
That's going to make you a good leader, because your people are going to see that and they're going to flock to that, because they know this individual cares about my soul. They care about me. And they want to give me Jesus, and they're going to do that. That is what's going to make you an effective pastor, not your ability to spout theological concepts.
Yeah.
Right? We need to come back to that.
Yeah.
We need to have that mentality. And I think if more young folks in the ministry, more young folks just in Reformed theology even, have that understanding and have that mentality, man, the church will flourish. The health of the church, it will be there'll be such health that happens within the church, because we have people that care more about the souls of their brothers and sisters than they do showing their brothers and sisters how smart they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Big Eva has sung, sir. Big Eva has sung.
Jack.
Yep.
I think she has. There's more that could be said, but I think we'll call that an ep. I think we're already way over time.
Yeah.
My friend, Jack Peppa. Captain Peppa Jack?
Captain Peppa Jack.
Captain Peppa Jack? Why don't you get us out of here, my guy?
Oh my gosh, it sounds like a bad kids TV show right there.
Yeah,
so,
it does. Well, what did Ed say?
gosh.
It sounded like a bad cereal, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
what he said? Yeah.
sound like the worst cereal ever that I'm not going to eat.
Captain,
I'm like,
Captain Peppa
well,
Jack.
welcome to my world of letting people down.
Oh,
Ladies and
don't I
gentlemen,
know it.
ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate Josh and I's efforts to make the local church central to your life and to the believer's life, you can continue these conversations that we're having, and even just the typical conversation of just the cigar recommendation alone.
Recommendations.
So if you appreciate just our time and talking about the local church and making that central and known to the believer's life, you can follow us on the sociables, if you will, the metaverse, the Facebook.
Yes.
It'll be laying off more people next week, which is terrible, but I guess that's the way things go when you don't plan right financially. You could also follow us on the Instagram. Goes well with chocolate and marshmallow. Or you can follow us on the biggest dumpster fire in the world, called the Tweaker, the Twitter, the Little Blue Bird site. All at the tag. You can follow us at the tag, at Reformatory Pod. Josh, you can tell the lovely people how they might support us in other different ways.
You
What?
can't say nothing. You know why you
What?
can't say nothing? You know why you can't say nothing?
What'd I
Because
do?
you're paying $8. You're paying for the blue check of that dumpster
Yeah.
fire. You're roasting s'mores on that dumpster fire is what you're doing. I love how the whole demographic.
but
Yeah, I love how the whole demographic has switched now that the cool folks, the cool people, are the ones that didn't pay for it. We're all just eating each other. That's all. That's all we're doing. It's all a
Yeah.
class system,
Doesn't
Jack.
matter.
It's literally
Doesn't
the Hunger
matter. We're all
Games on
killing
Twitter.
each-
That's
yeah.
what it is. See?
shooting each
Well,
other.
here's what you can do, folks. If you appreciate Jack and I's attempts, as he said, to make the local church central in the life of the believer, there are a couple ways you can help support us. First, If you are on a podcast platform that allows you to rate and review the podcast, we ask that you do so. We ask that you give us a little 5 stars for 5 solas. Maybe leave a little review on what you like about the podcast. Tell us how you found the podcast. It really does help the podcast get out to more people, and that they can be encouraged also in local church stuff. We appreciate that, especially if you're on Apple. So many people are on Apple, and I know that you're listening right now. I'm talking to you. You're listening right now, and you haven't given us a rating. You haven't given us a review. I'm asking you. I'm pleading with you. I'm exhorting you in the Lord to give us that 5 stars for 5 solas. That'd be awesome. We appreciate that. Last but not least, we have a Patreon, and we release bonus episodes on that Patreon. It's a lot of fun. Head on over to the Podluck. That's right. You heard that right. The Podluck. And for a $5 holla, you too could have your name. Wait, no, what is it? Yeah, you too could support the podcast, and our pledge to you is that your name shall be hallowed.
Hallowed, sir, hallowed.
Hallowed through the halls of the podcast. Almost didn't get through it. That's all right. We're getting there. We thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the next step of the Reformatory.